Sometimes a quiet change begins inside a person that others cannot see. Life around them continues, the same people chasing the same goals, repeating the same routines, believing the same stories. But something inside their heart has shifted. They start noticing things that once passed unnoticed. What once looked normal begins to feel strange. Conversations sound different. The rush of the world feels louder than before. It is as if a veil has been lifted, and the heart suddenly sees the deeper reality behind what everyone else calls life. In the reflections often associated with Ibn Arabi, there is a moment when the soul begins to awaken to a deeper awareness. When this happens, a person may feel different from those around them, not because they want to be, but because they can no longer see the world in the same way. And once the heart begins seeing clearly, it can never return to the blindness it once knew. The moment, the veil begins to lift. There are moments in life when a person begins sensing that something inside them has quietly changed. The world around them continues exactly as before. People move through their routines, pursue familiar goals, and speak about the same everyday concerns. From the outside, nothing appears different. Yet within the heart, a subtle awareness begins to grow. It feels as if the way one sees the world has shifted slightly, revealing details that were once hidden behind the ordinary flow of life. This change does not usually arrive with dramatic events. It often begins quietly, through reflection or a simple moment of clarity. A person may suddenly notice patterns in the behavior of others that once seemed normal. Conversations may begin revealing deeper meanings or motivations that were previously unnoticed. The heart becomes more attentive, observing life with a level of awareness that feels both surprising and profound. Many people describe this experience as if a veil has been gently lifted from their perception. What once seemed straightforward begins to show layers that were not visible before. Situations that appeared simple may now feel complex, carrying emotions, intentions, and consequences that the mind begins to recognize more clearly. This awareness does not necessarily make life easier. In fact, it can feel unsettling at first. When someone begins seeing more clearly, they may also begin noticing how easily people follow habits without questioning them. Certain ideas, traditions, or assumptions that once felt unquestionable may now invite deeper reflection. The heart starts asking questions about the direction people are moving and the reasons behind their choices. The wisdom, often associated with the Sufi path, speaks about these moments as part of an awakening within the soul. When awareness deepens, the heart becomes capable of recognizing truths that were once hidden beneath distraction and routine. A person may begin sensing that life is more than the surface patterns most people accept without hesitation. This shift can bring both clarity and responsibility. Seeing more clearly means understanding that many actions carry deeper consequences. The heart begins recognizing how intentions shape behavior and how choices influence the direction of life. What once felt ordinary now carries greater significance. As the veil continues to lift, the soul becomes more attentive to sincerity. A person may start valuing honesty, patience, and reflection more than approval or outward success. The mind becomes less interested in appearances and more interested in understanding the deeper reality behind actions and words. This awareness becomes a natural part of how the person experiences life. The world may remain the same, but the way the heart observes it becomes richer and more thoughtful. Every situation carries the possibility of insight. And once this clarity begins to grow, the soul realizes that seeing the world differently is not a burden, but an invitation to understand life with greater depth and wisdom. When the heart starts reading what is hidden, as awareness within the soul deepens, the heart begins noticing things that are not always visible on the surface. Words may remain the same, actions may appear ordinary, yet the intentions behind them become easier to sense. A person begins recognizing that life is often shaped not only by what people say, but by what remains unspoken beneath their words. This awareness develops quietly. At first, it may appear as a subtle feeling that something in a conversation carries more meaning than the words themselves. The tone of a voice, the hesitation before a response, or the energy within a situation begins revealing clues about what is truly happening beneath the surface. The heart gradually becomes more attentive to these hidden layers. Instead of accepting everything exactly as it appears, the soul begins observing the deeper motivations behind actions. It notices how pride, fear, kindness, or sincerity can quietly influence the choices people make. This ability to sense what is hidden does not come from suspicion or judgment. It grows from a deeper attentiveness within the heart. When a person becomes more reflective, they begin noticing the subtle emotional currents moving through human interactions. For example, a simple compliment may carry genuine kindness, or it may hide the desire for approval. A confident statement may reveal inner insecurity, while a quiet gesture may carry deep sincerity. These small signals become easier to recognize when the heart learns to observe life with patience. Many people move quickly through conversations without noticing these details. Their attention remains focused only on the obvious meaning of words. But a heart that has become more aware begins reading the atmosphere surrounding those words. This awareness can sometimes feel overwhelming at first. Recognizing the hidden struggles, worries, or intentions within others may bring a mixture of compassion and concern. The soul begins understanding that people often carry emotions they never openly express. Through this understanding, empathy begins to grow naturally. Instead of reacting quickly to what people say, a person learns to consider the deeper feelings behind their behavior. This patience can transform the way relationships are experienced. The heart also begins recognizing sincerity more clearly. Genuine kindness, honesty, and humility become easier to identify because they carry a certain calmness that cannot easily be imitated. This deeper awareness allows a person to move through life with greater wisdom. Situations that once felt confusing begin to make more sense because the hidden influences shaping them are no longer invisible. The soul gradually learns that life is full of layers. Beneath every visible action lies an intention, and beneath every intention lies a story that may never be spoken. And when the heart begins reading what is hidden, it starts understanding people not only through their words, but through the quiet truths their hearts reveal. The awakening of inner discernment. As awareness deepens within a person, another subtle ability begins to appear in the heart. This ability is often described as discernment, a quiet understanding that helps someone recognize the difference between what appears true and what truly carries sincerity. It is not something learned quickly or through simple observation. Instead, it develops gradually as the soul becomes more attentive to the deeper patterns of life. Inner discernment often begins with a shift in perception. A person starts noticing that not everything presented with confidence or popularity necessarily carries truth. Certain ideas that once felt convincing begin to reveal weaknesses when viewed with greater reflection. The heart begins to sense when something aligns with honesty and when something feels guided by ego, fear, or illusion. This awakening can feel surprising at first. Situations that once seemed clear may suddenly appear more complex. The mind begins recognizing that appearances can sometimes hide deeper realities. Words that once sounded persuasive may begin to feel hollow when the heart examines the intention behind them. Discernment does not mean becoming suspicious of everyone or questioning every action. Instead, it brings a balanced awareness. The soul begins observing life with calm attention rather than blind acceptance. A person becomes capable of pausing before forming judgments and considering the deeper influences shaping a situation. Through this awareness, the heart also becomes more sensitive to sincerity. Genuine kindness, humility, and honesty carry a certain calm presence that can be felt even without many words. In contrast, actions driven by pride or manipulation often leave a subtle discomfort that the heart begins recognizing more clearly. As discernment grows stronger, decision-making also changes. Instead of reacting quickly to every opportunity or influence, a person begins reflecting more carefully before choosing their direction. The heart becomes less interested in what appears impressive on the surface and more focused on what carries genuine meaning. This ability also encourages patience. The soul learns that understanding often requires time. Immediate conclusions may not reveal the full truth of a situation. By observing quietly and allowing events to unfold, a person can begin recognizing patterns that would otherwise remain hidden. Discernment also protects the heart from unnecessary confusion. When someone develops the ability to sense deeper intentions, they become less likely to follow paths that lead toward regret or disappointment. The soul becomes more selective about where it places its trust and energy. Another important aspect of discernment is humility. A person realizes that understanding life's complexities requires continuous learning. The heart remains open to new insights, rather than believing it already knows everything. This awakening brings clarity to many areas of life. Relationships, choices, and priorities begin aligning more closely with sincerity rather than external pressure. The heart becomes a guide that helps a person navigate situations with greater wisdom. This inner clarity also strengthens emotional balance. Instead of being easily influenced by opinions or trends, a person begins relying on their deeper understanding when evaluating what is right or meaningful. And as this discernment continues to grow, the soul discovers that true awareness is not about seeing more faults in the world, but about recognizing truth with calm and thoughtful clarity, seeing the direction people are walking toward. As awareness grows within the heart, a person begins noticing something that once remained hidden in plain sight. It becomes easier to see not only what people are doing in the present moment, but also the direction their choices are quietly leading them toward. Life begins to feel less random, and the patterns behind human behavior become clearer. Actions, habits, and decisions slowly reveal the paths people are creating for themselves. This realization may appear in small observations. A person may notice how certain behaviors repeat again and again, leading to the same outcomes over time. Someone who constantly acts with impatience may gradually create conflict in many areas of their life. Another person who practices kindness and patience often builds relationships filled with trust and support. These patterns begin to stand out more clearly when the heart becomes attentive. This awareness changes the way a person understands the flow of life. Instead of viewing each action as an isolated event, the soul begins recognizing how small choices accumulate into long-term direction. Every decision carries momentum, guiding a person slowly toward a particular future. Through this perspective, the heart begins sensing where certain paths may eventually lead. When someone is guided by ego, pride, or constant competition, their journey may quietly move toward restlessness or dissatisfaction. On the other hand, when a person acts with humility, sincerity, and patience, their path often leads toward peace and stability. This understanding does not come from judgment. Rather, it grows from careful observation. The soul begins noticing how the direction of life is shaped by the intentions behind everyday actions. People may believe they are simply responding to circumstances, yet their repeated habits are gradually shaping their future. With this awareness, a person may also begin reflecting more carefully on their own direction. Observing the paths others are creating can inspire deeper thought about the choices guiding one's own journey. The heart begins asking whether its actions align with the destination it hopes to reach. This realization can sometimes feel heavy. Seeing the direction of certain paths may bring concern when someone appears to be moving toward difficulty or regret. Yet it also encourages compassion. Understanding how habits shape outcomes allows a person to approach others with patience rather than quick judgment. This awareness also brings clarity to relationships. A person may begin recognizing which influences encourage growth and which environments quietly lead toward distraction or confusion. The heart becomes more thoughtful about where it invests its energy. The wisdom of this perception lies in understanding that life unfolds through continuous choices. No single decision determines everything, but each step contributes to the direction of the journey. When the heart becomes aware of these patterns, it gains the ability to choose its path with greater care. This awareness creates a deeper respect for the responsibility carried by every action. Even small choices begin to feel meaningful because they participate in shaping the road ahead. And through this understanding, the soul begins recognizing that every person is walking toward a destination built slowly by the direction of their daily steps. When truth feels clearer than approval, as the heart becomes more aware, a quiet change begins to appear in the way a person responds to the expectations of others. In earlier moments of life, approval from people may have felt extremely important. Many individuals naturally shape their words, opinions, and actions to match what others expect from them. The desire to be accepted, respected, and praised often influences many choices. Yet as deeper awareness develops, the heart begins noticing that approval can sometimes pull a person away from sincerity. A different understanding begins to form. A person starts realizing that approval from others is not always based on truth. Sometimes people support ideas simply because they are popular or familiar. At other times, individuals may reject something meaningful because it challenges their comfort. The heart begins recognizing that public opinion can change quickly and does not always reflect genuine wisdom. With this realization, truth begins to carry a stronger presence within the mind. A person may feel drawn toward honesty even when it does not bring immediate praise. Instead of constantly adjusting their perspective to satisfy others, the soul begins valuing sincerity more than agreement. This shift does not come from rebellion or pride. It comes from a growing respect for what feels genuine and right. This change can create tension. Choosing truth over approval may lead to misunderstanding from people who prefer conformity. When someone speaks or acts with sincerity rather than following the crowd, their choices may appear unusual or even uncomfortable to others. Yet the heart slowly learns that approval is not always a reliable guide. This awareness encourages a person to develop inner stability. Instead of measuring every action by the reactions of others, the soul begins evaluating choices according to honesty and integrity. The heart becomes more concerned with whether something is right rather than whether it will receive applause. Through this shift, courage begins to grow naturally. Speaking truth does not always require loud declarations. Sometimes it simply means quietly refusing to follow what feels false or empty. A person may choose patience, fairness, or humility, even when these qualities are not widely appreciated. The mind begins recognizing that truth often brings a deeper form of peace than approval ever could. Approval may provide temporary satisfaction, but it can disappear quickly when opinions change. Truth, however, creates a steady sense of alignment between actions and values. This clarity also improves decision-making. When a person is guided by sincerity rather than external pressure, their choices become more thoughtful and consistent. The heart learns to stand calmly within its understanding rather than being constantly influenced by shifting opinions. Another benefit of this awareness is emotional freedom. When approval is no longer the central goal, criticism loses much of its power. The soul becomes less troubled by disagreement because it understands that truth does not depend on universal agreement. Relationships also begin to change in meaningful ways. Connections built only on approval may weaken, while relationships grounded in honesty and respect often become stronger. The heart learns to value authenticity rather than constant agreement. The difference between truth and approval becomes easier to recognize. A person learns that approval may feel comforting, but truth provides direction and clarity. And within that clarity, the soul discovers that living honestly brings a deeper peace than chasing the approval of the world. Learning to carry quiet awareness. As awareness deepens within the heart, a person gradually begins to understand that seeing more clearly is not only a gift, but also a responsibility. The ability to notice deeper patterns in life can change how someone interacts with the world around them. Yet this awareness does not always need to be spoken aloud or displayed openly. In many cases, the soul learns that wisdom is best carried with quiet humility. When someone begins recognizing hidden meanings in situations, there may be a strong urge to explain these insights to others. The mind may feel that if people could simply see what is now visible to the heart, many misunderstandings could be avoided. However, experience slowly teaches that not everyone is ready to see the same things at the same time. Through patience, the heart begins to realize that awareness grows differently for each person. Just as every individual walks a unique path in life, their understanding of the world unfolds at its own pace. Attempting to force deeper insight upon others often creates resistance rather than clarity. This realization encourages the soul to develop quiet awareness. Instead of constantly pointing out every hidden detail or explaining every observation, a person learns to observe with calm attentiveness. They begin to understand that wisdom often speaks more through actions than through words. Quiet awareness also protects the heart from unnecessary conflict. When someone sees more clearly than others in certain situations, it can sometimes lead to disagreement or misunderstanding. By carrying this awareness with patience and humility, a person avoids turning insight into confrontation. In many spiritual traditions, silence is valued as a companion of wisdom. When the heart becomes attentive and reflective, it begins recognizing when words are helpful and when silence carries greater strength. Not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Some insights are meant to guide personal growth rather than become arguments with others. This approach allows a person to move through life with greater balance. Instead of feeling burdened by what they see, they learn to observe calmly and respond thoughtfully. Awareness becomes a tool for understanding rather than a source of frustration. This quiet awareness strengthens compassion. When a person recognizes that everyone is learning at their own pace, patience naturally grows. The heart becomes less interested in correcting others and more focused on understanding their experiences. Another benefit of carrying awareness quietly is emotional stability. Instead of reacting strongly to every situation, the soul becomes capable of observing events with a sense of calm reflection. This stability allows a person to make wiser decisions, even in complicated circumstances. Through this process, humility becomes an important companion. A person understands that awareness does not make them superior to others. It simply means their perspective has changed, and with that change comes the responsibility to act with kindness and patience. Quiet awareness becomes a natural way of living. The heart observes life carefully, responds thoughtfully, and remains open to continued learning. And within this calm attentiveness, the soul discovers that true wisdom often speaks most clearly through quiet understanding. Realizing awareness is a responsibility. As a person begins to see the world with deeper clarity, a quiet realization slowly forms within the heart. Awareness is not only something that changes how life is observed, it also brings a certain responsibility. When the soul becomes capable of recognizing deeper truths, the way a person moves through life naturally begins to change. Seeing more clearly means understanding that every thought, action, and decision carries influence. Awareness may feel like a personal discovery. A person notices patterns in life, senses the intentions behind actions, and begins understanding the direction of many situations. Yet with time, the heart begins recognizing that insight is not meant to remain only within the mind. It shapes how someone behaves, speaks, and interacts with others. One part of this responsibility is honesty with oneself. When awareness grows, it becomes difficult to ignore what the heart knows to be true. Choices that once seemed harmless may begin to feel inconsistent with deeper understanding. The soul begins encouraging actions that align with sincerity rather than convenience. This realization also changes how a person treats others. Seeing more clearly can reveal the struggles and emotions hidden within people's lives. Instead of responding with impatience or judgment, the heart begins responding with compassion. Understanding the complexity of human experience encourages kindness rather than harshness. Another responsibility of awareness is careful speech. Words carry power, and someone who understands deeper meanings becomes more attentive to how those words are used. Conversations become more thoughtful because the heart recognizes that speech can either bring clarity or create confusion. Awareness also influences the way a person approaches challenges. Difficult situations are no longer seen only as obstacles. Instead, they are understood as opportunities to respond with patience and wisdom. A person becomes more conscious of how their reactions affect the outcome of events. This responsibility does not mean a person must carry the weight of the entire world. Rather, it encourages living with greater intention. Small actions begin to feel meaningful because they reflect the understanding the soul has gained. This awareness can feel demanding. Recognizing the deeper impact of choices may make certain decisions more difficult. Yet this challenge also strengthens character. The heart becomes guided by integrity rather than impulse. Another aspect of responsibility is humility. Even with deeper awareness, a person understands that learning never ends. The world continues revealing new lessons, and the soul remains open to growth and reflection. Through this mindset, awareness becomes a guide for living thoughtfully. Instead of moving through life unconsciously, a person becomes attentive to the influence of their presence, words, and actions. The heart accepts that awareness is not simply knowledge. It is a reminder that understanding carries purpose. Insight is meant to shape how life is lived. And within this realization, the soul learns that seeing more clearly is not only a gift, but also an invitation to walk through the world with wisdom and responsibility. Sometimes, the moment a person begins seeing the world differently is the moment their inner journey truly begins. What once looked clear may start revealing deeper layers, and the heart slowly realizes that not everything in life is as simple as it first appeared. The reflections often associated with Ibn Arabi remind us that awareness is not meant to separate a person from the world, but to deepen their understanding of it. When the heart begins seeing more clearly, it is being invited to walk through life with greater wisdom, patience, and sincerity. So if you feel that your perspective has changed and you can no longer see the world in the same way, do not rush to silence that awareness. Sometimes the reason you see more is because your soul is being guided to understand more, and that understanding can quietly transform the way you live, think, and walk your path.